What happens when ordinary men stop seeing others as human? Not in the heat of battle, not in the chaos of war, but in a place built with precision, a place where death was scheduled, where murder became routine, where the screams eventually stopped, not because the killing ended, but because there was no one left to scream. There is a place in Poland where the earth still remembers, where the air feels different, where 1 million souls vanished into smoke, and the world stood silent. This is not a story about monsters. It's about what happens when humanity looks away. This is Auschwitz. You are watching Dread Documentary. Please click on subscribe button below. Introduction. January 30th, 1933. Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. Within weeks, the first concentration camp opens at Dachau. It begins as a political prison, a place to silence dissent, to eliminate opposition, to instill fear. But this is only the beginning. Hitler's vision is not merely political, it is biological. He believes in racial purity, in a hierarchy of human worth, in the idea that some lives matter more than others, and those who don't fit his vision, Jews, Romani, disabled individuals, homosexuals, political prisoners, they are not just enemies. They are, in his twisted ideology, contaminants to be removed. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, becomes the architect of this nightmare. Under his command, the concentration camp system expands. But even Himmler cannot yet imagine what is coming. In southern Poland, near the town of Auschwitz, Auschwitz in German, sits an old military barracks, unremarkable, forgettable, a place that should have remained unknown to history. But history had other plans. This was not a battlefield. This was not a prison. This was a machine, a factory where life was stripped of meaning, where humanity was reduced to ash and smoke, where the very concept of evil found its purest expression. And it all started with a simple order. Birth of Auschwitz. April 27, 1940. Heinrich Himmler orders the establishment of a new concentration camp in occupied Poland. The location, Auschwitz. The purpose, to hold Polish political prisoners, intellectuals, resistance fighters, anyone who threatens the Nazi occupation. Rudolf Höss, a career SS officer with a cold efficiency and an unshakable loyalty to the Reich, is appointed commandant. He arrives to find old Polish army barracks, crumbling and inadequate. But Höss sees potential. He sees space. He sees the opportunity to build something the SS has never built before. Something bigger. The first transport arrives in June 1940. 728 Polish prisoners, many of them intellectuals and resistance members. They are registered, tattooed with numbers, stripped of their identities. They become labor. They become expendable. But Auschwitz is growing. By March 1941, Himmler orders the expansion. The camp must hold 30,000 prisoners, then 100,000. The numbers keep rising. The vision keeps expanding. 3 separate camps emerge. Auschwitz I, the original camp, the administrative heart, the place where prisoners are processed, tortured, and executed, where the infamous gate stands, Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free. A lie carved in iron. Auschwitz II, Birkenau, 2 miles away, the largest of the 3, built for one purpose, mass extermination. This is where the trains will arrive, where the selections will happen, where the gas chambers will consume thousands every single day. Auschwitz III, Monowitz, and dozens of subcamps. Labor camps, where prisoners are worked to death building synthetic rubber and other materials for the Nazi war machine. Here, companies like IG Farben profit from slave labor, treating human beings as disposable resources. By 1942, Auschwitz is no longer just a camp. It is a system, a machine. And the world has no idea what is coming. Because in Berlin, in the cold corridors of power, a decision has been made. A decision so monstrous, so absolute, that it will redefine the word evil for generations to come. They call it the final solution. January 20th, 1942. A villa on the shore of Lake Wannsee, just outside Berlin. 15 high-ranking Nazi officials gather for a meeting. It lasts 90 minutes, coffee is served, notes are taken. The discussion is calm, clinical, efficient. And in those 90 minutes, they plan the murder of 11 million people. This is the Wannsee Conference, the moment when the Nazi regime formalizes what has already begun in secret, the complete annihilation of European Jewry. They call it Endlösung der Judenfrage, the final solution to the Jewish question. The language is sterile, clinical. They speak of evacuation, of resettlement, of special treatment. But the meaning is clear. Extermination. Operation Reinhard begins. Across occupied Poland, extermination camps are constructed. Treblinka, Sobibor, Belgic. Their sole purpose is murder. But none will match the scale, the efficiency, the industrial precision of Auschwitz-Birkenau. The trains begin to arrive. From Warsaw, from Budapest, from Paris and Amsterdam and Athens. Cattle cars packed with men, women, children, entire families. No food, no water, no air. Bodies pressed together in the darkness, breathing in the stench of fear and death. Some die before the train even arrives. The rest step onto the platform at Birkenau, blinking in the light, gasping for air, searching for their loved ones in the chaos. And then they see them. The SS officers, immaculate uniforms, polished boots, faces like snow. And behind them, the chimneys, always smoking. Always. Raus! Raus! Schnell! Out! Out! Quickly! They stumble from the trains, old men who can barely walk, mothers clutching infants, children holding hands, eyes wide with terror. They are told to leave their luggage on the platform. They will get it back later, they are promised. They never see it again. And then comes the selection. An SS doctor stands at the head of the ramp. Sometimes it's Josef Mengele, the angel of death, immaculate in his pressed uniform, a slight smile on his lips. Sometimes it's another officer. It doesn't matter. With a flick of his hand, he decides who lives and who dies. Left, right. Left, right. The young and healthy, those who can work, sent to the right. Temporary survival, weeks, maybe months of forced labor before they collapse from exhaustion or disease. The old, the sick, the children, mothers with infants, sent to the left. They are told they are going to shower, to be disinfected, that they will be reunited with their family soon. Another lie. They walk in lines toward large buildings. Some notice the chimneys. Some smell the smoke. A few begin to understand, but by then it is too late. They are ordered to undress, to remember where they hang their clothes. They will need them after the shower, they are promised. They never see them again. They are herded into large rooms with shower heads on the ceiling. The doors are sealed, airtight. And through vents in the roof, SS guards drop in canisters of Zyklon B,
a pesticide that releases hydrogen cyanide gas. It takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes of screaming, of clawing at walls, of parents trying to lift their children toward the ceiling, toward air that doesn't exist. 15 minutes of pure, unimaginable terror. And then, silence. The doors open. The bodies are dragged out by Sonderkommandos, Jewish prisoners forced to do the Nazis' most horrific work, knowing their own turn will come eventually. They search the bodies for gold fillings, jewelry, anything of value. They cut the hair from the corpses. It will be used to make cloth, to stuff mattresses. Then the bodies are burned. In crematoria at first, but as the numbers grow, the crematoria can't keep up. So they dig massive pits and burn bodies in the open air. The smoke rises day and night. The ashes fall like snow. In a single day, Auschwitz-Birkenau can murder 10,000 people. And the trains keep coming. From Hungary alone, in the spring and summer of 1944, over 400,000 Jews are deported to Auschwitz. Most are dead within hours of arrival. The platform at Birkenau becomes the most lethal place on earth. But for those who are selected to live, if you can call it living, a different kind of hell awaits. 4 a.m. The bell rings. The prisoners wake. The wake implies they slept. They didn't. They lay on wooden bunks, packed together like cargo, covered in lice, shivering through the night, listening to the moans of the dying. Roll call begins. Appel. They stand in rows, in rain, in snow, in burning summer heat, for hours. The SS counts them, recounts them. Anyone who collapses is beaten or shot or dragged to the gas chambers. This is control. This is dehumanization. This is how you break a person's spirit before you break their body. After roll call, if they survive it, comes work. 12 hours of forced labor, building roads, hauling stones, working in factories, draining swamps. The work is designed to be impossible. There is never enough food, never enough rest. The goal is not productivity. The goal is death. Those who work in the factories of Monowitz, producing synthetic rubber for IG Farben, fare no better. The company benefits from near-free labor, paying the SS a pittance per prisoner per day. And when a prisoner becomes too weak to work, they are simply replaced. No one asks what happens to them. Everyone knows. The food is designed to kill you slowly. Breakfast, a cup of brown water they call coffee or sometimes tea. Lunch, a thin soup made from rotten vegetables and the occasional bit of fat. Dinner, a piece of bread, sometimes with a sliver of margarine or a spoonful of jam. Maybe 1,000 calories a day, while doing hard labor in freezing cold or blistering heat. The body consumes itself. Muscle turns to fuel. The skin stretches over bones. Eyes sink into skulls. People become walking skeletons, shuffling through the camp like ghosts. They call it Musulman, the term prisoners use for those who have given up, who have lost the will to survive, whose bodies are shutting down. When you become a Musulman, death is days away, maybe hours. And always there is disease. Typhus, dysentery, tuberculosis, infections from untreated wounds. The camp is a breeding ground for death. There are hospitals, Revier.
There are hospitals, Revier, but they are not places of healing. They're places where you wait to die, where doctors like Josef Mengele, conduct experiments. Josef Mengele, the angel of death. He arrives at Auschwitz in May 1943, a trained physician with a PhD in anthropology and a fascination with genetics. He is charming, polite, even gentle with the children, at first. He hands out candy, he smiles, and then he begins his experiments. Twins are his obsession. He collects them from the selection ramp, promising their parents that the children will be safe, that they will receive special treatment. In a way, they do. They are kept alive longer than most, but only so Mengele can use them. He injects dyes into their eyes to see if he can change their color. He performs surgeries without anesthesia. He infects one twin with a disease to see if the other will catch it. He sews twins together to create conjoined twins. He dissects them while they are still alive. He keeps meticulous records, charts, measurements, photos. To him, this is science. To him, these are not children. They are specimens. And he is not alone. Other doctors perform sterilization experiments, trying to find ways to make entire populations infertile. They expose women to massive doses of radiation. They inject chemicals into uteruses. They perform surgeries that leave victims in agony for the rest of their short lives. All in the name of racial purity. All justified by an ideology that sees some human beings as less than human. There are moments, even here, of resistance, of humanity clinging to itself in the face of annihilation. Prisoners share their bread with those who are weaker. They whisper prayers in the darkness. They sing songs from home. They tell stories to keep their culture alive. They hold each other when the cold becomes unbearable. In October 1944, members of the Sonderkommando, those forced to work in the gas chambers, rise up in revolt. They have smuggled explosives from a nearby factory. They destroy one of the crematoria. They kill several SS guards. The revolt is crushed within hours. The prisoners are executed. But for a moment, in the heart of hell, they fought back. But most do not fight. Most cannot. They simply endure, day after day, hour after hour, waiting, hoping, knowing that survival is not a matter of strength or will. It is a matter of luck. And luck runs out. By 1944, Auschwitz has become something the world has never seen before. Not just a camp, not just a killing center, an industry. 445,000. That is the number of Hungarian Jews murdered at Auschwitz between May and July 1944, in just 8 weeks. This is not random violence. This is not chaos. This is logistics. This is organization. This is genocide as assembly line. The Nazis are meticulous. Every arrival is documented, every piece of luggage cataloged, every body accounted for. The SS keeps records of the trains, the number of deportees, the numbers selected for work, the number sent to the gas. They are murdering people by the thousands, and they are filing reports. Zyklon Bon, the gas used in the chambers, is manufactured by a private company. They order it by the ton. They negotiate prices. They filed purchase orders. Someone, somewhere, is doing accounting for genocide. The bodies yield resources. Gold teeth are melted down and sent to Berlin. Hair is baled and shipped to factories to be made into cloth. Wedding rings, glasses, shoes, everything is sorted, cataloged, and reused. The complex at Auschwitz includes warehouses the prisoners call Canada, because Canada represents wealth, abundance. These warehouses are filled with the belongings of the murdered, mountains of suitcases, piles of egg glasses, rooms full of children's toys. The Nazis are not just killing people, they are erasing them and profiting from it. At Monowitz, IG Farben, one of Germany's largest chemical companies, operates a factory using slave labor from Auschwitz. They paid the SS 4 marks a day for skilled workers, 3 marks for unskilled. When a prisoner dies, they simply requisition another. The company's executives know. They visit the factory. They see the prisoners, walking skeletons in striped uniforms, collapsing from exhaustion. They see the bodies being carried away, and they do nothing, because this is profitable, because the war needs rubber, because the ideology tells them these people are not really people. The killing becomes routine. The guards stop thinking about it. They eat their meals, play cards, write letters home. They talk about the weather, about their families, about their plans after the war. And then they go to the gas chambers and drop in the Zyklon Bahn. One survivor, Rudolf Verba, who escaped from Auschwitz in 1944, later described the psychological detachment of the SS. They didn't see us as human beings. To them, we were cargo, numbers, units to be processed. The bureaucracy makes it easier. The language makes it easier. You're not murdering children, you're processing units. You're not committing genocide, you're implementing the final solution. Distance, detachment, dehumanization. But the system is not perfect. The crematoria cannot keep up with the volume of bodies. In the summer of 1944, during the height of the Hungarian deportations, they burn corpses in open pits day and night. The smoke is visible for miles. The smell is inescapable. Nearby villages know. The people of Auschwitz know. Some even work at the camp, delivering supplies, maintaining infrastructure. The world is beginning to know, too. By 1944, reports from escaped prisoners have reached the Allies. The Verba-Wetzler report, written by 2 Slovak Jews who escaped in April 1944, provides detailed descriptions of the camp's layout, the gas chambers, the selections, the numbers. The report is sent to Jewish organizations, to the Vatican, to Allied governments. And still, the trains keep coming. The Allies do not bomb the rail lines leading to Auschwitz. They do not bomb the gas chambers, even though their planes fly over the area on bombing runs to nearby industrial targets. Later, they will say it was not strategically feasible, that it would have diverted resources from the war effort. But in the winter of 1944, the war is turning. The Soviets are advancing from the east, the Americans and British from the west. Germany is collapsing. The Reich is crumbling. And the SS knows it. In the final months of Auschwitz, the Nazis panic. They begin destroying evidence, burning documents, dismantling gas chambers, blowing up crematoria. They try to erase what they have done, but they cannot erase the bodies, and they cannot hide from what is coming.
January 19th, 1945. The Red Army is less than 60 miles from Auschwitz. The Nazis know they have days, maybe hours, before the Soviets arrive. On January 17th, the SS begins evacuating the camp. But they don't free the prisoners. They force them to march. 60,000 prisoners are driven westward into the frozen Polish countryside in what will become known as the Death Marches. They walk through snow, without adequate clothing, without food, without rest. Those who fall behind are shot. Those who collapse are left to freeze. Thousands die along the road. At Auschwitz itself, the SS leaves behind only those too sick or too weak to walk. About 7,000 prisoners remain abandoned in the barracks, waiting to die or to be liberated. They no longer know which will come first. On January 27, 1945, Soviet soldiers of the 322nd Rifle Division reached the gates of Auschwitz. They are not prepared for what they find. The soldiers expect a military target, perhaps a prisoner of war camp. They have seen horrors before. This is war, after all. But nothing prepares them for Auschwitz. They find thousands of corpses piled in barracks, stacked near the crematoria, frozen in the snow. They find survivors who look like living skeletons, barely able to move, eyes hollow, staring without comprehension. They find warehouses filled with belongings, hundreds of thousands of pairs of shoes, mountains of human hair, crates filled with eyeglasses, suitcases still labeled with names and addresses. They find the gas chambers, the ovens, the ash pits. One Soviet officer, Anatoly Shapiro, later recalled, "We liberated Auschwitz, but we couldn't believe what we were seeing. It didn't make sense. How could human beings do this?" The survivors, those who remained, do not celebrate. They do not cheer. Many simply stare. Some cry. Others are too exhausted even for that. A young girl, one of the children found by the Soviets, said only, "We are free, but everyone is dead." The Soviets document everything. They film the barracks, the bodies, the survivors. They gather evidence. They interview those who can speak. They prepare for the world to see. But even as the truth begins to emerge, many cannot, will not believe it. How could something like this happen? How could an entire system be built for the sole purpose of extermination? How could thousands of people participate and millions more turn away? In the months after liberation, the world learns the full scope of the Holocaust. As Allied forces liberate camp after camp, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, Buchenwald, the evidence becomes undeniable. 6 million Jews murdered. 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population gone. Along with them, hundreds of thousands of Romani, disabled individuals, political prisoners, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet POWs. 11 million people erased because of ideology, because of hate, because the world looked away. Auschwitz is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a reckoning. November 20th, 1945. Nuremberg, Germany. In the Palace of Justice, 24 high-ranking Nazi officials sit in the dock, facing charges of crimes against humanity, war crimes, and conspiracy to commit genocide. This is the first international war crimes tribunal of its kind. The world is watching. The evidence is overwhelming. Films from the liberation of the camps, testimonies from survivors, documents signed by the defendants themselves, orders, memos, train schedules. The Nazi regime's greatest weakness was its obsession with documentation. They recorded everything, and now those records condemn them. Some of the defendants claim they were following orders. Others deny knowledge of the exterminations. A few show no remorse at all. Hermann Göring, once Hitler's second-in-command, says, "The victor will always be the judge, and the vanquished the accused." But the judges are not interested in moral relativism. The evidence speaks for itself. 12 are sentenced to death. 7 receive prison terms. 3 are acquitted. It is not enough. It will never be enough. But it is a beginning. In the decades that follow, Auschwitz becomes something more than a place. It becomes a symbol, a warning, a scar on the face of humanity. Survivors dedicate their lives to testimony, to remembering, to making sure the world never forgets. Primo Levi, an Italian Jewish chemist who survived Auschwitz, writes, "It happened, therefore, it can happen again. This is the core of what we have to say." Elie Wiesel, who lost his mother and sister at Auschwitz, spends his life speaking out against indifference. He says, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of life is not death, it's indifference." The camp itself is preserved, not as it was during the war. That would be unbearable. But as a memorial. The barracks remain. The barbed wire remains. The gas chambers, though partially destroyed by the fleeing Nazis, remain. More than 2 million people visit Auschwitz each year. They walk the same paths the prisoners walked. They see the same gates, the same buildings, the same train tracks. And they try to understand. But understanding is impossible. You cannot understand Auschwitz. You can only remember it. The survivors grew old, their numbers dwindled. By 2025, fewer than 100,000 Holocaust survivors remain alive. Soon, there will be no living witnesses, no one left to say, "I was there, I saw it, I survived it." And that is why we must remember, why we must teach, why we never, ever look away. Because Auschwitz did not happen in a vacuum. It happened because of choices, individual choices, collective choices, the choice to hate, the choice to dehumanize, the choice to obey, the choice to remain silent. The Nazis did not suddenly appear out of nowhere. They were elected. They were supported. They were enabled by millions of ordinary people who went along, who didn't think it would get that bad, who told themselves it wasn't their problem. And by the time they realized what they had allowed to happen, it was too late. Auschwitz stands today not as a museum of the past, but as a warning for the future. The barbed wire remains, not to hold prisoners, but to hold memories. The gates remain, not to keep people in, but to let truth out. The chimneys remain, silent now, but still speaking. They say, "This happened, here, in the heart of civilized Europe, in the 20th century, by people who had families, who loved music, who celebrated Christmas. They say, never again. But never again is not a promise. It is a responsibility. A responsibility we all share.
If we forget Auschwitz, we do not just dishonor the dead, we invite it to happen again. The question has never been, how did they do this? The question is, how many of us would have watched? How many of us would have looked away, told ourselves it wasn't our business, convinced ourselves that speaking out would be too dangerous, too difficult, too costly? Auschwitz is not just history. It is a mirror. And what we see in that mirror is not just the capacity for evil, it is the capacity for indifference. The trains have stopped, the chimneys are cold, the gates are open. But the question remains, what will you do when the world looks away?